Mosca. We're here in Austin, Texas at IT Expo West 2011, and I'm joined today by John Camp, Solutions Specialist for Inference Solutions. John, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So who exactly is Inference Solutions?
So Inference Solutions is a specialist speech recognition and voice automation application development company. We're Australian founded and we've just launched into the US. We've been here around 10 months.
Great.
And we're probably a little bit different to a traditional speech vendor in the sense that we don't sell platform and we don't sell speech recognition software. We sell applications that talk to that environment. And probably the key difference really is that we're platform independent and vendor independent. So really a whole of solutions, so design, development, deploy and support.
So what was the reason behind the expansion into the United States?
So the actual technology was developed in Australia as part of Telstra Research Laboratories as a patented technology, and it's been running there for around the last 6 or 7 years. And just through expansion and growth, the US market, we feel, especially in the mid-market, is largely untapped. And largely ignored by a lot of the large speech vendors. There's been a lot of consolidation within the speech industry. A lot of smaller organisations swallowed up, and so we think it's a good opportunity to expand into the US market.
Great. And your title is Solutions Specialist.
Yeah.
What exactly does that entail? What's your role at the company?
Some might argue it's a bit of a jack of all trades, but our total go-to-market is really around channel and being channel friendly.
Okay.
Our aim is to be 100% channel. It's probably unrealistic. We're going to need to keep some direct business, but probably about around 90% channel focused. And so instead of having a traditional model where we might have a salesperson talk to the salesperson at the channel, a solution specialist really is to cover all of the roles. So it's understanding of business cases and return on investment development, understanding of the speech market, understanding the position, how to position speech products, but really understanding the key elements of a customer's business, so we can actually add value to the solutions provider rather than just put a salesman next to a salesman.
And you guys have obviously done a great job of that in the Australian market. Could you talk a little bit about maybe the differences between the Australian market and the US market?
The easiest difference is size and price point. It'd be just purely because of the volume. The size of the market is enormous. The problems are still the same. We deal a lot with contact centres, and the issues around handle time, or the issues around automation and trying to reduce total cost of ownership are still very prevalent. In terms of the Australian market, what we found there is that it's probably a bit slower to move to a software as a service model, and certainly a lot slower in terms of moving off premise and taking that leap of faith in a fully hosted solution. Also, one of the key differences in the US market is really that the technology around SIP is a lot more prevalent. So there's really only a couple of major carriers in Australia, and they've been reluctant to release SIP to the market. And what we've noticed here is that every organisation that has a hosted solution or is a carrier has a SIP offering. And that's really expanded the ability to be able to offer pure software as a service speech solutions.
Sure, and that was actually my next question. Who's actually slower to adopt? So obviously it's Australia then.
Actually, no, interestingly, no. Australia is very much a testing ground for a lot of large organisations, purely because of the size of the market. So as much as companies are desperate for SIP in the US, the reluctance comes from the carriers because they don't know how to charge for it, and it's a change in their pricing model, which when you're a monopoly in Australia, that's obviously beneficial. In terms of actually adopting speech recognition and adopting things like voice biometrics, which is one of the areas we're specialists in, some of the largest deployments of voice biometrics are actually done in Australia by National Australia Bank, and also the childcare agency in Australia as well. Several million records. I think in the US they've been a bit more reluctant to actually adopt certainly the biometrics piece.
So you guys are definitely hoping to, with your expansion, to help everyone, to make that transition.
Absolutely. I think, as we're saying, in the mid-market, what we're finding, in the range of between 100 and 250 seat contact centres, they've largely been, I wouldn't say ignored, but certainly not heard by the larger speech vendors, and there's certainly a market for that. The next logical step, once you've moved into a hosted environment, is to look at more advanced feature-rich services, and something that we think our service providers and our business partners will be able to capitalise on is the ability to talk to their customers about a real stickiness and a real ability to solve business problems with speech recognition solutions, rather than just stick with DTMF and touchstone systems.
Sure. And in terms of trends in the speech recognition market, where do you see it moving, and how does the company plan to adhere to those changes to answer the solution?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the key differentiators between Inference Solutions and some of the other speech vendors is that we have the ability to rapidly deploy applications. The patented technology that came from Telstra Research Laboratories in Australia allows for machine learning. So the term inference comes from the ability to program the application to infer from several sentences what a person might say and how it might interact with the application. So it allows customers to actually see and touch and feel the application in weeks rather than months. And the way that traditional speech vendors approach this is they do a typical waterfall development where it'll take several months to develop, and that'll be the first time that the customer gets to see it. The great thing about the solutions that we deploy are that because we are able to reduce the actual amount of time taken to develop, and customers can touch and feel it, it actually reduces the overall total cost of ownership, which is one of the key differentiators. And when you're working in a software as a service market and when you're trying to deploy software as a service solutions, customers are generally unwilling to pay for development effort. They want something that's short and rapid, not something that doesn't change as their business changes. And I think the other key area that we can address that's not been addressed in the market is really self-management of the solution. So allowing customers to actually manage their own application once it's been deployed, to make minor changes, to develop reports themselves, to run reports and have a full suite of reports already built into the app. And that makes a massive difference just in terms of total cost of ownership. It means that the customer's not required to constantly come back to you for additional professional services.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your input today, John, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for being on the show.
Thanks very much.